Yo guys, what is all good? I hope you're all doing absolutely amazing and are trading safely in the markets. It's your boy VGOK and welcome back to the VGOK trading channel. Now today's video is going to be a market outlook following the intense crazy news week we've just had, and we're going to be definitely diving into, as you can tell by the title already, what the dollar is basically going to be doing. Is it actually ready to gain some strength finally again and find some more value, or are we going to be continuing to drop down? So stay tuned and we'll be able to go into it all and have a look at everything. And of course, if you are interested in getting earlier access to these sorts of videos and these sorts of calls live with myself and the rest of my mentorship team, then please do get in contact with me via my Instagram saying the word mentorship, and I'll be able to see what the best options will be for you. We'll be able to have a conversation about it and see what the best fit will be for yourselves. But with that being said, let's jump straight into the market outlook. So starting off with the market outlook, let's have a look into the news for the coming week, and heading straight over to Forex Factory. As we can see from the week we've just had, it was a crazy week. We had the FOMC statement for the US dollar, so the interest rates for the dollar coming out. We also had the pound and the euro interest rates coming out the following day, and then also of course the famous NFP news release on Friday as well, which we had for the US dollar unemployment rate. So plenty of news which we've just passed, and looking forward to next week what we can actually see. Monday doesn't look like there's a lot, but we'll be looking into investing.com calendar as well, just to see if there is any differences as usual. But from first glance, it doesn't look like there's much on the Monday to really look at. On Tuesday, we can see there is the interest rate decision for the Australian dollar. We do have a couple speeches as well, as you can see the Fed Chair Powell speaking right there for the dollar. Some more FOMC members speaking on the Wednesday. As you can see, there is the bond auction, which should have some sort of impact on the dollar as well. So we'll have another look into that. But on the whole, probably a bit more of a quieter week. Apart from if you do trade the Canadian dollar, then we do have the unemployment rates for the Canadian dollar on the Friday. Now, usually they do come out the same time as the US unemployment rates on NFP. So typically you would see them with the NFP news release for the US dollar unemployment rates. But sometimes they do split them up and spread them, a week apart. But yeah, looking forward to this week. It doesn't look like there's going to be too much crazy, news releases to really catch us out and do crazy moves. So, we'll see how these things, relate to the charts. But starting off, let's start off with GBP/USD. And from the daily time frame, we can see obviously this daily point of interest, which I've had marked on for God knows how long now. We did see price come up into it very nicely, drop back down into here, and then we had the nice accumulation from last month's NFP to shoot price back to the upside. Now, following on what's happened, in the recent week, we've had FOMC spiking news up, and then obviously NFP spiking news back down again for GU, and we can see that it is retracing back down. But if we look at how this high was made, we can see it just about goes higher than the previous high. So technically speaking, I'm looking for some sort of demand in here, even though we are dropping off fairly aggressively. It'd be interesting to see how we approach the zone. If we approach too quickly, then of course we're just going to be looking for further sells and continuation sells downwards. But we do have a nice demand zone in here, which we'll go into in just a second, and also this daily demand zone over here. So we can see the daily demand zone over here, and we've got over here, I've written on this red line, bottom of the monthly POI. So if you go to the monthly time frame right now and have a look at exactly what that was talking about, it was this low over here. So I just wanted to see, whether it was going to respect the low, or whether it was going to break structure below this low, or either manipulate the low and return to the upside. And in my opinion, it's done the last thing I just said. So it's manipulated the low. You can see the fast movement in that monthly candle. We didn't get a closure down below. We had a fast manipulative move, just taking out the lows of the previous monthly low, and then a sharp movement to the upside. And when we go into the daily, we can actually see how that relates. So strong push to the upside, respect of the imbalanced areas right in there to push higher, and eventually breaking structure above here. If we go into the line chart, this is the major structure point which creates the lowest low. Obviously these points are valid as well. They do get broken in here, but this being that major swing high to swing low, and that's the one that gets broken over in this movement here, showing us that break of structure to the upside. So that's why I'm looking into this area for a continued bullish move. perhaps getting some continued bullish order flow in that region right in there. So we want to have a look into there, and obviously this is a clear POI. We've got a nice sell to buy candle on the daily time frame with a clean imbalance following it as well. So it'd be really interesting to see if price does get down to here, will it slow down enough for it to accumulate and make the next leg up. So yeah, looking into that higher time frame wise for GU. Now when we go into the lower time frames, we can see obviously this was from that previous NFP buy that we took that hit that 1 to 40. Of course it did go even further. It went to a max of 1 to 71. So you know, in hindsight, you know, having held all of that would have been amazing, but to be honest, to take profits at 1 to 40 is fantastic as well. And as we can see, price is coming very quickly to the downside in this region here, so definitely going to be monitoring price in that region over there. From the 4-hour time frame, you can see, you know, those 2 wicks in there which make up the rally based rally, so that will be the main point of interest I'll be looking into for there, and we'll see how it gets respected, if it gets respected as well. But on the whole, you know, we do have good buy to sell movements, we do have liquidity builds up as well. So perhaps this liquidity to be run if we do get some early strength on the pound. But looking at how strongly it is rejecting to the downside, I would probably say it's going to reach the demand here before it can retrace back up and get some more retracement sells. So there's a couple different options to really think about in there. Now on the 4-hour time frame, it does look like this was a mitigation instead of a liquidity buildup. So in all honesty, we could probably look into this region over here. So the start of the 4-hour wick to the whole candle, and that could be one zone. Now there are smaller zones which I've marked out just over there, which we're going to have a look into now. So this, remember, is that 4-hour supply zone right in there. And if we look into these lower time frames on the minute, we can see the supply zones which got respected after the big NFP news drop, and then we had another 3 PM news which dropped price back down as well, showing, you know, the direction that it really wanted to go in. There is a higher little supply zone in here, but the major one is going to be pretty much, I think, when this imbalance gets filled or something in here, we start to see the distribution form within there and then see the drop back down. So that's pretty much where I'll be looking for my continuation style of moves. But yeah, still, in my opinion, a lot of liquidity formed. You know, we've got this trendline liquidity there, we've got that equal high liquidity right in there as well. So I do think that price will be attracted to the upside and, you know, magnetized to these higher prices, I think. So I'm intrigued to see how it moves and, you know, where it retraces to at the start of the week. And again, with a low news week, you know, it'll be interesting to see if, you know, whether we get any big moves, because we had amazingly, you know, volatile moves in the previous week. So we'll have a look at that as well. But so far, I'll probably just be monitoring price throughout Monday as well, just to see how it progresses. But no real big zones to really look into just yet. So moving on to AUD USD right now. And we can see that it's currently in this 30-minute demand. We could probably generalize that to a larger sort of time frame. There is a 5-minute demand down in there as well, which obviously it's gone through the 30-minute and approaching the 5. So let's have a look at the 5 just there, just so we can see what it was based upon. And as we start to see, we can see right in there the last sell to buy candle on the 5-minute time frame in here, which broke structure above here, and there's a slight clean imbalance just in there as well. So obviously, depending on how market opens tonight, we're going to see whether it respects this zone. If it can respect it, then we may see some opportunities for some more long positions on AU. But at the moment, it has, you know, violated this 30-minute demand as well, so that's currently invalidated, and now this is the one to really concentrate on. So probably worth having some alerts around this region. So just the start of the zone would be good, I think, to see how it reacts. And of course, you know, as we're looking into it, we can see from the daily time frame as well now, that daily supply which price got up to and really, you know, showed a big buy to sell manipulation into, and then a rejection down. So from the daily time frame, it's pretty obvious where we're going to be looking for, you know, this supply zone, this buy to sell. We can see the trend line that was existing in there, which got taken out. So liquidity taken out above the trend line, and then a fast drop back down. So I think this area is going to be pretty interesting to see. Now, obviously, on the daily time frame, it's one huge candlestick, this buy candlestick over here. Now, the size of that candle is pretty big. You know, it's 104 pips, 105 pips roughly. the size of that candle. So we don't want to use that as the whole POI. We want to sort of look for cleaner zones within there. So as we go into the 8 hour and below, we can start to see how that daily candlestick was built up. We can see in here we've got the drop, base drop. That's going to be one candle definitely I want to look into. So right in there, that supply existing over there, and we're just going to label it on as the 8 hour drop, base drop. We're going to see if price can retrace back into this region over here, and we'll see, you know, if we can get any distributions forming within the supply. Otherwise, we do have this demand that's still open. That will be intriguing to see if we can get down in there. And just on second glance, I'm just going to clear some of this old analysis all in here, just so we can see the candlesticks a bit clearer. And I think what I've just spotted is an area, a degree of equal lows in this region. So you can see in here, they're not exactly equal, but you know, they're relatively equal in the same spot. So I do think liquidity is sitting in here. There's a pool of liquidity sitting there. So, and we can see how aggressively it's coming down. For it to really reject off this last 5-minute demand zone, it's going to have to, you know, ideally I think be news induced to give that a big push, unless it does consolidate for a decent amount of time and then goes up. But by the way that it's looking at the moment, the strength of the push down, I do think that these lows are going to be taken, and potentially something in this region here for demand to come into play. But as we can see from the 4 hour and then the 2 hour, as we look into things, you know, this area does look pretty good. We had previous demands in here being respected really nicely, sharp movement up, and then no mitigation after that. So we do want to really have a closer look into this region here, I would say, for any future mitigations. Demand zone wise, that's what I see in there. Obviously the 8 hour drop, base drop, we can see it on the 2 hour looks like this. We can see the redistribution of price in here a lot more clearly. So we'll see definitely what happens in there, but at the moment it's, I think on these pairs, after the big volatile moves we saw last week on pretty much all of them, I think it's going to be the same story. Maybe not the JPY pairs, but well, maybe not GJ, I should say. EJ did move a fair bit as well, but I do think we're just going to have to be waiting for those nice movements. But yeah, moving on to NZD USD, as you can see straight away, it is looking very similar to AU in the sense that we had a build-up of relatively equal highs, buy to sell manipulation to come back down. Now, of course, if we don't retrace back up and we do continue going down to these demand zones, then chances are it may just be a big reaccumulation. Usually when you get a distribution looking price action and it doesn't retrace back for, you know, the testing phase and the last point of supply, then usually, you know, it will be creating a creek or just getting back into demand zones to accumulate and push further higher. So you know, we've got to be prepared for that scenario as well. So we'll see what happens with that. But on the daily time frame, we can see, you know, the major drop back down. So for redistribution style trades, we'll be marking up some zones off of that. And we can see the previous demand zones in here, which I thought at one point were valid, and I think probably the 45-minute in there, that's sell to buy, and price just dumped straight through it. So we're going to have a look into that region there and see how price can, you know, potentially get back up into there and see what happens really. So let's see what happens with that. And yeah, let's continue to see what we can see for in terms of these zones. So this is definitely invalidated. That one there is invalidated as well, and approaching this zone at the bottom down here. So what we can see is we've got equal lows in this region, and we've got the sell to buy candles over here, and we want to see if price can take out these equal lows and potentially, you know, reaccumulate in that region. But obviously it is a fair distance away, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Now, failing that, there is a smaller zone just above it which I want to see, and on the hourly, I think, yeah, on the hourly it's pretty clear. It's this drop, this rally-based rally demand zone in here, so we do want to have a look into that region as well. So we do have a nice 1 hourly rally-based rally, which we'll look into and obviously set alerts accordingly so we know when price gets there. But yeah, similar to the other pairs, we're just going to see how that goes. Moving on to DXY. Now, this is, like I said in the intro of this video, something I did really want to sort of hone in on and find out is, let's just take a look to start with on the monthly time frame. Now, on the monthly time frame, at one point I was looking into this rally situation over here and waiting for an earlier push up for the dollar. Now instead what we've done is just taken it out and gone lower, and when we actually look into the weekly time frame, you can see exactly why it's done that. So even on the weekly time frame, this is what my initial demand zone was based on for so long. And you know, we started to see this consolidation just above the zone, which is always a good sign, a slowdown of price just above a demand zone, and then I was waiting for a manipulative wick down to then have a higher push up. Instead we had the opposite. We had the high push up, down, up to the upside, and then a sharp movement back down, taking liquidity out above that trend line. So that's what we saw for the dollar right there, pushing down and eventually invalidating this weekly demand. So obviously that's being invalidated, and just below the weekly demand there, we did have another weekly sort of demand zone underneath it. And we can see that in this region over here, there's a rally-based rally situation, rally-based rally candlestick formation in there, the demand zone, which takes out this previous supply. So I think, yeah, I was probably just looking a bit too early for the demand zone, and as we can see, the way that it's reacted into the demand zone is quite nice in terms of bullish reactions and bullish movements. We can see the sharp movement within that wick, the sell to buy movement, and as we go into the daily time frame, what can we see that started to form? You know, it looks like the start of an accumulation phase. You know, slow movement downwards into the you know close to the demand zone, relatively equal lows being created, so liquidity sitting there, and then we do get that sell to buy movement to take out liquidity, have a sharp move in the opposite direction, showing us, you know, the strength of the bullish push. So in all honesty, this is why I was saying at the start, you know, are we going to be seeing strength in the dollar again? Is this the first signs of a strong dollar pushing back to the upside? So really interesting to see that. So a couple different scenarios, and I'm just going to delete some of this previous analysis just so we can see the chart a bit clearly again. So a couple different scenarios I have is, you know, are we going to get a retracement back down into this daily sell to buy movement? Getting into this imbalance fill, maybe coming down into here nice and slow, accumulating price, and then showing another move to the upside. That's another option. So coming back down into the imbalance to then, you know, move higher, getting into that supply zone there. There is another supply zone in here which I want to talk about as well, because it's the lower high over here which created the lowest low. So it's that swing high to swing low, and obviously there's going to be a supply zone in there to look into. But for the moment, if that's what we get, that's one option. Now of course, just because it looks like an accumulation doesn't mean it really is an accumulation, and of course I'm going to be going into this in more detail in the Wyckoff part 2 video when I go into the more advanced styles of Wyckoff schematics. So please do stay tuned for that, as well as that will be coming out, you know, hopefully very soon. But yeah, like I said, if it just looks like an accumulation doesn't mean it has to be an accumulation. So sometimes what can happen, so let me get rid of these arrows. So that's one scenario right in there, and another scenario is if it does keep just looking to push to the upside, you know, maybe coming upwards, downwards, upward, downwards, you know, making that wave structure to the upside, eventually coming up to that supply over here, and then it may look to redistribute and continue this downtrend that it potentially is in. So, you know, it's got this lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, all these lower highs and lower lows being printed in here, and then this lower high, lower low, creating the next lower high over here for a redistribution to then make a new lower low. So it depends, it really just depends on, you know, obviously how price moves in the first couple of days of this week. Are we going to be coming up and continuing this bullish push to the supply zone in here, or are we going to start to retrace down and start to build up some bullish order flow and, you know, start to see some you know, actual strength in the dollar again? So I think it's a pretty crucial week. We did have a heavy news week last week, but we can see exactly what the news did. It's basically manipulated the DXY chart. So we can see a big sell to buy manipulation on DXY, and that was all because of the NFP and FOMC moves last week. So yeah, it's really interesting to see you know, how the DXY, how the dollar is going to be moving this week. And moving on to EURUSD, and we can see, of course, you know, if you're not seeing it by now, there's a bit of a trend on the charts following the news last week. Just on the 3-day supply is what I've got marked on at the moment, is that buy to sell movement in there. It takes out equal high liquidity just before it, and, you know, leaves a really nice point of interest, and we do get that movement into it and the spike back down. So looking into the daily time frame again, you can see the resemblance it has with the DXY, or I should say the opposite resemblance, seeing how they're oppositely correlated. But yeah, we can see this buy to sell that has been created, and similarly, is it going to retrace back up into here to get those continued sells, or are we going to be continuing to the downside, you know, following this push and then perhaps accumulating in the next demand zone, which is over here. Now the thing with the EU is we've got a lot of demand zones, so you know, if this one doesn't hold, you know, there's a really nice 4-hour one over here which we can look into. So if I look into the 4-hour time frame, a really clean sell to buy candle which price could potentially get into. Obviously it's a hell of a long way, you know, away from current price. It's about 750 pips, which is amazing. So if that is the case, you know, and it does decide to retrace back to the upside and, you know, give some sell scenarios, then if we can get some sells, partial profits at this daily demand, and then, you know, eventually if it does go lower, then this is the next area we'll look into as well. But yeah, for now we'll just sort of see how price you know, decides to move for the first couple of days of this week. And I think it's just going to be a case of you know, waiting for these zones. I think it's better to wait for your higher time frame established zones rather than trying to scalp in between on these, you know, half-ass zones basically. But yeah, that's pretty much what I see for Euro USD. Moving on to GBP JPY, and from what I can see on here, if I'm not mistaken, there was a slight demand zone in here which price did give a really nice spike to the upside, and definitely broke structure on the lower time frames in here. So you can see on the hourly and below how structure was broken very nicely to the upside in here, reaccumulating again into another demand zone and pushing higher. Now the one thing is we have got into this supply zone over here, so on the 15-minute time frame we can actually see in this region right in there that buy to sell movement definitely manipulated into this previous order block over here, pushed back down, and then we did get a continuation move off that. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we actually continue from this supply and push down again, but the strength of the push from the demand was very strong, so I do want to see if we can get, you know, continued order flow from there as well. In terms of how price rejected from here, we can see there's a slight area of, you know, this liquidity existing in there, this candle manipulating price above it, dropping back down, and then we can see how price drops off after that as well. So let's see what happens with all of that. If we do get the push down into these demand zones over here, or maybe back into this lower one over here. But yeah, ideally let's just take it easy on that, and let's just see, you know, what mitigations form, basically what mitigations form from POIs, and sort of just play the confirmed buys or sells accordingly after that. But yeah, for GJ, it's good. I think on all these pairs, like I said, it's going to be a waiting game. Moving on to US dollar JPY, and as we can see, the effect that this had, that NFP had on this pair, obviously from the daily doesn't look like much, but that last daily candle, as you can see, has taken out so much previous price. You know, we can see that it's taken out, you know, the previous 17 days worth of price in one candle. Is this, that one candle is bigger than 17 days previous of price. So you know, a lot of volatility in that last Friday of last week, and we can see exactly in this region, you know, good bullish push to the upside, and you know, basically a mitigation, a rejection of this last sell to buy in this region over here, pushing price higher, and then price never really, you know, looks to go below this area again. So still in keeping with that bullish order flow, and you can see that in here, this rejection back up into here, a smaller demand zone on the other time frames which we'll look into just soon, and then we can see that's what it reacted off of to give that NFP push. So as we see right in here, that last 5-minute order block in there, when price was looking to break to the upside over there, and we can see how price has respected it just about, and then given a bit of an accumulation and then pushing to the upside. So I mean, if you wanna, you could have that as the next point of interest, but looking at how far away it is, you know, you'd be waiting a long time if that's the only zone you're waiting for. So I guess it's no harm in obviously marking it up and setting the alerts and whatnot at these regions, just so you're prepared. But in terms of supply, you know, we've taken out this whole range, I think. So by looking at UJ, it does give more of a, you know, the dollar going bullish again. It's giving that sort of a bias, I think, more than any other pair at the moment. So we'll see if that does give that same sort of move, but we can see in here there's an unmitigated supply in there. All of these previous ones have been mitigated and, you know, sorted out. The only one that hasn't is this one in here, which I feel is going to be better seen on the 4-hour time frame. Yeah, exactly. So as we can see right in here, this 4-hour buy to sell movement, and we do have a drop-based drop in that region as well, which has not been mitigated. So if that's one thing it could be reaching for, then we're going to be definitely looking into that region. We can see that that's the lower high which created the lowest low, and price hasn't retraced back up into there. So I really am intrigued to see what happens in here. If we do get a distribution in here to form, we could see all of this price get taken out and a new lower low created in this downtrend. So there are a couple different options, different sort of biases we can sort of go by for the dollar bias. So there we have that full breakdown of this week's market outlook, and you know, we've had a good look into the news as well. Yeah, a bit of a quieter week to come, especially compared to the previous week, as we can see and as we've just seen. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy that breakdown and you know, found value and learned something, then please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well. It really does mean a lot. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next video for more of that trading source.